For the last session of today, we have another interesting panel discussion, which will talk about the best practices and managing hybrid cloud infrastructure for the future. For the moderator, we have a very esteemed guest, Mr. Golok Kumar Simli, who's the CTO with the Ministry of External Affairs with the Government of India. Hello, Mr. Golok.
Hi, Mr. Jay. It's all set?
All good. We're live on the event. We're just waiting for the other panelists who will be joining in shortly.
Very good.
We will have with us Mr. John Mankarios, who's the Vice President for Information Technology at QInvest. We'll also have Loice Ngulube, who's the CIO from People's Own Savings Bank from Zimbabwe. We'll also have Mr. Mohammed Viqaruddin, who's the Cloud Solution Architect at Almoayed Computers, Middle East. He's also the Vice President for Education at Bahrain IT Professionals. We'll have with us Mr. Aayush Bhattacharyya, who's the Senior Cloud Engineer from a leading oil and gas company. And lastly, but not least, of course, we have Mr. Robert Mogoi, who's the ICT Manager from Mombasa Port, Sacco. So, Mr. Golok, the stage is all set for you. I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, very good. Good evening, gentlemen. I think India, it is about to be, I think just we are crossing 7 p.m. Doha time maybe around 4 o'clock or something, 4:30. Great. And thank you, Jay, for giving a nice introduction to all the eminent panelists. And let me at the outset also thanks Ms. Bridget and the organizer for bringing me here for the very vibrant panel, which will be touching upon various aspects of cloud transformation, data centers, security and privacy concerns. But before I start the panel, let me once again greet all the co-panelists who have joined me for this panel discussion. Let me also greet to all the participants who have joined here for listening to this panel interaction. I am sure at the end of the session, we'll have a lot of takeaways from this panel. Very eminent panel members joining with me. So a lot of takeaways, as I said, a lot of thought views and thought leadership views we will have on the panel. And as I rightly said, before I start the panel, let me set the tempo for the entire panel so that each panel member know they are ready with their questions and we can take it forward. Now, coming back to today's discussions, we'll typically focus on how do we bring an intelligent transformation that should be imbibed with kind of agility, adaptability in terms of citizen and beneficiary empowerment. And today, if I foresee the digital technology per se, or data center or cloud, whatever technology infrastructure, digital infrastructure we are talking about, it is all about how do we empower our citizens, how do we empower our beneficiaries, how do we empower our stakeholders at large. And when I look back into the technology side of it, today technology is sitting at the core, at the center. When we bring in this kind of a massive transformations where we are talking about millions and millions of citizens at large in the country, and why only the citizens, but all the stakeholders, whether it is a service provider, whether it is your own various stakeholders who are part of the entire transformation and creation of that ecosystem. And therefore, in my view, when you talk about this kind of a creation of cloud platform or on-prem data centers, I think there are 4-5 straight away very important factors which comes to my mind is when we think of something kind of this kind of a massive transformation, uh, bringing and bridging gaps between, let's say, rural and urban, bringing and bridging gaps between literate and illiterate masses at large, and giving a kind of a equivalent platform for all of us, whether I as a department, somebody as a user, somebody as a customer, beneficiary. So can we create that kind of a platform and ecosystem which doesn't make any sort of a difference? And that ecosystem should not be for day one, but how do we make it sustainable over a time? That is the big questions which we experience whenever we undertake this kind of a massive transformation. The sustainability becomes a big question. So therefore, as I said, there are three, four things which straight away comes to my mind is whenever we are creating such massive digital infrastructure, whether it is a data center, cloud infrastructure, applications, today there are plethora of apps we are creating. The first factor comes to my mind is there has to be a innovation. Whatever you do, there has to be a innovation. And when I say innovation in all sense, in terms of business process engineering, in terms of creating a business model, in terms of creating a win-win scenario for all the stakeholders, whether it is service provider, department by itself, user, beneficiaries, and citizen at large. And also when we leverage technology, we must see that every bit of technology, there has to be ROI, return on investment, right? So that kind of innovative thinking, if we can bring in for our uh, entire digital journey and digital transformation process, I think we already win a step ahead, and that's what probably we are doing, whatever program and project we are taking up. So bring in a component of innovation. Whatever you do, for whomever you are working or whichever organization you are working, let us come out from the traditional way, bring in the innovation component in every components you are looking for. The second aspect must be on the transformation side. Whenever we are looking for transformation, you must see that the transformation must be imbibed with a collaborative thinking and shared wisdom. That is the other problem and other kind of a issue which we generally observe during this massive transformation, especially the digital transformation we are taking forward. It misses the collaborative thinking and shared wisdom. So how do you bring your transformation per se, which must have collaborative thinking and shared wisdom? Meaning to say that whenever I am, for an example, today if I am looking for a, let's say, health system, improving the health system, is that health system alone will be able to deliver? No, absolutely not. Probably along with the health system, probably my digital infrastructure across all the state or across all the district or across, let's say, all the blocks and talukas or right at the village level, my digital infrastructure should be ready if I'm trying to, let's say, completely transform the health sector. Similarly, why I'm looking for the whole health sector is that also I'm able to connect to all the pharmaceutical industry and kind of a doctors, hospitals, all of these. So the transformation doesn't mean within yourself, within your own organization, but as I said, all the dependencies, all the stakeholders at large, are we able to take them along? The third point comes to mind is today when we talk about this massive transformation, massive data, massive infrastructure, we are no all of us we are coming into a way of the data, whether it is your personal data or non-personal data, whether it is directly or indirectly. How do you deal with data? So typically, do you really have a data strategy to deal with this kind of a massive transformation, dealing with your personal data, non-personal data, dealing with your security concerns, privacy concerns, and on top of that the land of the laws, regulations, acts, compliances, land of the laws. So are you fully gelling in when you are dealing with the massive data, whether it is a structured data, unstructured data, personal data, non-personal data? And last but not the least, the last point I would like to make before I go to the panel members is whatever we do, for whomever we do, we must ensure that today it is no more a silo approach, right? We have traveled a long journey from silo days to consolidation days. Today we are at a automation stage. Probably we are looking one step ahead. Why only automation? Today we are talking about hyper automation. Now, if we are thinking of those kind of a scenario, today we have moved out from those kind of a post facto investigation to proactive. But why only proactive? Today I am thinking of a predictive. Can I predict something, right? Can I predict saying that before the, let's say, a particular state or district is impacted by COVID-19, can I really predict saying that my health infrastructure is ready or not? Can I really predict how much movement I have to do of health personnel or front end personnel to deal with that particular problem in the state? Or before a disaster occurs, can I really predict saying that what kind of readiness I have? So these kind of scenario we are into. So these are the four, I think, caveats we must look into when we are thinking of digital journey, when we are thinking of coming out from our traditional approach to a innovative approach, when we are thinking of going away from on-prem data center to cloud infrastructure, and when we are also thinking of holistic. When I say holistic, means it's everyone, including yourself, your stakeholder, beneficiary, and process at large, and also from end to end. Now, giving these caveats, and initial remarks, now I'd like to come to Mr. John to take some of the panel questions. So, Mr. John, very good evening. Mr. John,
Hi, good
can you?
evening.
Yeah, good evening. So, Mr. John, as I said, a lot of aspects we as CIO or digital leader has to look into when we are especially moving towards a cloud journey. In your view, how do you like to choose the right model of the cloud approach you are adapting, and whether you will adopt a kind of a managed service model, co-located model? So there are various kind of a cloud model today existing, or whether you will adopt a kind of a hybrid kind of approach. So how do you really kind of a decide and convince your management saying that the cloud approach you are adopting is the right approach? Yeah, Mr. John, your take, please.
Yes, thank you. Before we start talking about the models or the cloud adoption, we need to talk about what is our cloud strategy. Why would I move to cloud, or why do I need to move my services to cloud? Cloud has always been here, but with different name. We used to call it hosting, where we have some hosted providers locally. We can put our services on their data centers, on their servers, and being managed. Currently, cloud strategy is being part of any company's digital transformation strategy. You cannot go and say, we will start our digital transformation journey without including cloud. It's not possible. Currently, there are more than one model when we talk about cloud. We have private cloud, we have public cloud, we have hybrid model, and we have even multiple hybrid public cloud model. In the private model, where we all currently using similar model, like we host all of our services and resources in our on-premise data centers. Maybe some advanced models using cloud platform like Azure Stack or vSphere. This is what we call at the moment private cloud. And we have public cloud, and this is perfect for small and medium businesses, where you host all of your services, all of your resources on cloud. You don't need to assess if I need the on-premise data centers, or I will put my services in a local provider. You can put all your services, host all your services in public cloud, like Azure, like OCI, Oracle Cloud, like AWS, Amazon, or Google Cloud as well. Yes, Google Cloud. And we have as well the hybrid cloud, where you have some services need to be hosted on-premise in your data center, and some services can be run from public cloud. And we have as well the multiple public cloud, where you host, for example, your databases, you host it at OCI, Oracle Cloud, and host your infrastructure on Azure, and host your big data analytics on Google Cloud. So this is what we call multiple public cloud. And this is a little bit complicated scenario where you have more of your services in a different public clouds. What I how do you decide which model, what to do? This is what I want to elaborate today. And I want just to say one fact, that currently a lot of companies are adopting the hybrid cloud model, where some services are running on-premise in their own data centers, and some services are running on public cloud with connectivity, integration, automation, and so on. First factor you need to consider when you think about your cloud strategy is the cost. You need to assess your cost carefully. Some companies like to have more assets than expenses. Some companies like CapEx model more than OpEx model. When we talk about public cloud, we talk about OpEx model, where you need to pay monthly or yearly, but you keep paying every month or every year. It's not like you have your own data center. You buy the hardware one time, you capitalize this hardware for 3 years, 5 years, whatever the lifetime your company, your finance team decides. So some companies like CapEx, some companies like OpEx. Another thing, service availability. You cannot decide your public cloud, or I will stay on private, on-premise or private cloud, except you have to assess your service availability. Is the service I want to move, or I want to start, or I'm operating using, available on public cloud or not available on public cloud? Currently, I would say most of the services are available on public cloud. Most of the database vendors, most of the applications, even SAP and core banking systems, they have now a cloud model as well. Second is the regulations. And currently, regulations are complicating items, specifically when it comes to health records, financial data. Till now, in our region here in Qatar, financial data is not easy to operate through cloud, although we have now Microsoft Cloud available on-premise here in Qatar, but still, you need to take the permission from QCP or QFC before you move your financial data to cloud. Another part is connectivity. You cannot go and say, I will host my services on public cloud, but I'll host it in US. Okay, can you imagine the latency, how it will be? You cannot go and say, I will host on Alibaba cloud, while you don't have in the region any Alibaba data center. So you have to assess your connectivity very carefully if this is feasible to you or no. And the last item I would like to talk about is automation. When you talk about hybrid cloud model between private and public, you need to assess and decide how you will automate your services, how data will be transferred from public to private and vice versa. Some cloud providers cannot provide this automation, by the way, till now. You have to do it either manually, or you have to buy your own automation system to run the automation between two data centers. I want to say that till now, the hybrid cloud model is the most common cloud strategy. Specifically, I would talk about financial and investment services, because this is where I work at the moment. You cannot, for example, it's not easy to operate core banking systems from cloud. It needs high computing. It will need a lot of security constraints and a lot of security measures to be applied. And still, I would say the trust in public cloud is not 100%. So till now, for example, core banking system is not easy. Health data, this is very critical data. And when it comes to data protection methodologies, it's not yet feasible or not yet applied in our region specifically to host in public cloud, at least not outside the current region.
I agree, Mr. John. I think I'll come to you on my second round saying that, but some of the points which you have said for all of us, very interesting, saying that we must have a cloud strategy. Then you said there are four no very important components where one has to be very careful in terms of cost, in terms of availability, in terms of compliances, in terms of connectivity and automation. No, I think I 100% agree with your views and saying that one has to be no very careful enough while you are planning your cloud strategy first, and then these are the some of the caveats which you have said very important to analyze and introspect even before you are starting to moving towards a cloud journey. So thank you, Mr. John. I'll come back to you. Let me go to Mr. Aayush. Very good evening, Mr. Aayush. If you can switch on your microphone, please.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Good evening.
Golok. Thank you.
So, Aish, you belong to a oil sectors, large oil sectors. Very interesting. I would like to ask you, Ayush, saying that when we are looking for a cloud journey, some of the points which even I am kind of experiencing or observing, or we CIOs at large, what we are observing is one is the interoperability aspects, right? uh, how do you ensure that whatever we host on a today on a particular cloud, whether it is Azure, AWS, or Google, tomorrow I am not having a kind of a vendor lock kind of a scenario, because as Mr. John was also making the observation, saying that it's not easy when you migrate your, especially the mission critical load into the cloud, right? So that interoperability aspects, how do we take care? The second, on the same line, I would also like to ask Mr. Ayush, saying that when we are moving into a cloud journey, the big questions comes to our mind is how do we create that visibility, that observability we are looking for, end to end. When I say end to end, in terms of my workload, in terms of my workforce, in terms of my no end to end no management and monitoring. So how do we create that kind of a visibility and observability over the cloud? So over to you, Mr. Ayush.
Thank you. Definitely, the journey to cloud is just not switching to a partner and approaching to a solution directly on what is required. It's a phased activity. It's an activity that starts much before then you actually deploy workloads on cloud. It requires a strategy. It requires a cloud adaptation framework which has to be built by your solution architects or your business process owners, talking to each different unit and asking them what is the need that they have. When we work with different clients, we don't want to lock into a particular solution on a particular platform. That's the first most thing. You don't want to lock yourself out. You want to have that interoperability between what you're having right now, the workload that you run. Along with that, on top of it, you want options to opt for from different cloud vendors, AWS or Google or OCI or Azure. Each of them have their own pros and cons, but it depends on the domain. What do you require? Are you a banking domain? Are you a data modeling domain? Are you a company that is healthcare domain, oil and gas domain? Are you a managed service providers? So each of the domains have different respective of the use of the cloud model. That's where you need to have a cloud adaptation framework that gives you a framework of approach of what the requirement is. Now, many clients would come up to me and say that, I would want the best security measure. Give me the top-notch security measure, and make sure that my data is with me and I can see end to end of where my data goes. The solution for that client would be different from a client who is a startup who would want just a very cheap or very less cost, a capex or opex kind of a model where they do not have to pay more. Just initial days pay what are the services they are using. The solution for that, the framework for that would be different. When we when we approach to this kind of solutions, we don't lift and shift the workload directly, be it any domain, right? Even if it's a small company, big company, medium company, our approach to solution being delivered to is a hybrid model to check which vendor do you want to see through, which cloud do you want to adapt to, does it serve your need, do you have a requirement benchmark that it actually follows, and that's actually data resilience is there. Then you have a secured measure is there, you have the automation option in those cloud or not. For example, most of the clients these days who are trying to go for a POC approach to test which cloud do they want to go for, they want to have an infrastructure built at the very initial stage. When I say infrastructure, that on cloud could be your firewalls, could be your applications, load balancers, data matrices. We need tools. We need tools that actually is inter cloud open model. It can work with any of them. Then that gives a help to solution delivery guys to approach. Let's say, for example, Terraform is an amazing tool, third-party tool, but you can use across all the clouds, right? And saying so, there are many such open model that you can actually implement in your solution that gives the client the best possible, approach, including that, yes, the governance model is followed. So this is my key take, I think, for this particular solution designing for the cloud, and that's where the journey starts for any client.
Thank you, Mr. Ayush. As you rightly said, I think interoperability, cloud multi-tenacity, as you said, no open model, open architecture kind of a scenario, what one should approach, and one should also must see that, no, as I said, and as we are discussing, know how much visibility I am able to create. Tomorrow, if I am moving from one cloud provider to another cloud provider, how smooth and how easy it is for migration, including any kind of a not getting, not only in terms of technology but also in terms of compliances, regulations. Are I am getting or are we getting a stuck up some sort of a no problem where not only your businesses will go in haywire, but also in terms of your new opportunity, new business, stakeholders at large. So everything will go for a toss. So I think open architecture, open platform, open model, interoperable standards, interoperable solution and technologies would naturally have a big role when we decide upon the cloud journey. So thank you, Mr. Ayush. I'll come back to you on the second question. Ms. Loice, I'll come to you. Good evening, Ms. Loice.
Good evening, good afternoon.
Yes. So, Loice, like Mr. John and Mr. Ayush has brought out, one is while we want to know, or while we are careful enough while deciding for a cloud strategy, uh, and at the same time know what kind of platform is it, a vendor lock kind of a scenario in all sense, in terms of technology, in terms of processes, in terms of compliance and regulations. I would like to ask Loice, saying that how do you see when it comes to cloud journey, or can you tell us some of the best practices globally, at least three, four best practices which you feel that once we are looking towards, let's say, a cloud migration way or cloud kind of a infrastructure, moving our workload, especially the mission critical workload, and the critical workload, if we are moving towards the cloud, how do you see, Loshi, in terms of best practices? What are the measures we should take care, and how is that globally it is happening? Ms. Loice, your take, please.
Thank you very much for your question, Golok. I'll just look at maybe 4 particular areas to pay attention to. Some early adopters have had difficulty detecting and adopting the appropriate hybrid cloud solution, failing to bridge the gap between their current and future IT solutions. So to avoid such pitfalls when adopting the cloud solutions, which are probably hybrid, firstly, we have to look for a solution that is standardized and easy to deploy. It should be a solution that is well known in the industry and commonly used across different IT environments. In other ways, we should not really select one for a once-off solution. Don't buy a solution that will only solve one of your issues. Look for a solution that is commonly used and is broadly used. Going to the third bit, I'll apply controls to the hybrid solution. We need to have controls to help manage each and every cloud workload and ensure that the quality of services remains high for all of our applications and services that we want to deliver. We must identify the quality level of service that governs the hybrid cloud. And we need to have minimum and maximum best control to ensure that any workload running in this cloud will not impact other services. We will need to work with the vendor to determine the solution and to ensure that the solution allows us to allocate, manage, and guarantee performance independently of capacity. Now, coming to the fourth point, we want to choose a solution that meets current and future needs. I did allude to one-off issues solutions, which we need to avoid. So now we need to be able to select a solution that is an agile hybrid cloud to ensure that the technology can adapt to meet our current and future needs. We need to ensure that the programs, the programming changes, and that the agencies that we need to service with our solutions adhere to, and they need to be flexible solutions that can easily support all our efforts. If I will maybe just take the last one, which is going to be a fifth one, it will be collaborating with a very trusted partner. Our workforce is continuously evolving, so we need to ensure that we have a trusted partner to complement the in-house expertise, because we will be retaining on-premise and also applying cloud usage. So working with a trusted partner will ensure that we determine a cloud solution that best meets the infrastructure that we have and does not require heavy lifting to implement and to use. I will stop there for now, and thank you again, Golok.
Thank you, Ms. Loice. I think very valid points you have brought out to all of us, saying that, and I 100% agree with the views you have put forward, saying that adaptability, agility, collaborative thinking, trust, very important. Trust and partnership. Who is your partner? How much you can trust? And what also reminds me the point which you have brought in, saying that the kind of in-house preparedness you have in terms of your workforce, in terms of skilling and reskilling your workforce. So unless you have your in-house team, I think it's very difficult, that kind of mission critical load moving into the cloud. Uh, I always say that one has to outsource your task, but not your responsibility, right? So how do you ensure that your responsibility you are owning? How do you also ensure that you are driving from the front? Rather, it is driven by the cloud provider. I think these are the points, Ms. Loice, you have brought it out very nicely, and I fully agree with that. Now, let me come to Mr. Viqaruddin Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Good evening, Mr. Mohammed. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
I think all of our panel members are bringing out that workload plays a very major role. What kind of workload we are dealing with. The straight questions comes to my mind, Mr. Mohammed, saying that how do you really measure your workload? How do you decide that which workload should I move into the cloud? How do you segregate between your, the kind of varied kind of data you have? You have no fiduciary data, you have non-fiduciary data, you have personal data, non-personal data, you have configurable data, you have public data. So how do you decide the workload before even moving into the cloud? The problem we do, and what I have experienced, especially saying that you simply feel that no, I'll move into the cloud, but how? What kind of workload? Is that your workforce is ready to deal with the workload you are moving into the cloud? So my question to you is, Mr. Mohammed, how do you really strategize about your workload even before moving your workload into the cloud? Can you please have your thoughts?
Thank you, eminent panel moderator. Such a wonderful question, and so far you have given lots of insight about the cloud journey. Directly to your question, I will go from the scratch. Assume that you don't have anything, like you are running traditional data center and you are about to move to the cloud. But in that scenario, the major concern, as you have mentioned, about the security. Another thing about the workload and how we can move and how we can trust the provider to give our all information to the cloud provider. Usually, all cloud provider give us assurance they have a fully secured, but even maybe you have some more than the confidential data. Then prior to that, we need to make a decision on that. This is how we can move in terms of the security. And the second term, like you have a simple public website, normally you are visible to everyone. It's not a big deal for you to share, either you keep in your on-prem, which you have a fully secured, as well as going to the cloud. And the third thing, you need to be see the perspective about the end user. Like if you are going for the specific region and your visibility is not that much visible to the other parts of world. I'm talking about like region, Middle East. Now you have Asia, America. If you want to use your workload, the website or your information to access globally, so we need to plan on that. And now the challenge, as I said, traditional data center. Now I don't know, and what are the dependencies, especially like too many integration services are there, like one service which already done by one vendor, another service done by the another vendor, third, fourth, fifth, but lots of workflow you have. Even you have a document, but when come for the cutover, I mean, like now you decide to move, and later you realize, oh, we have a less bandwidth. Oh, we have missed some database. We have missed some connection. We miss. We need some kind of another provider to connect with us. There is a API is missing. So the strategy for making this workload to the cloud, you need to have a kind of a tool which give you the visibility, like as is condition when you are moving, and the workload itself, it has to run and find out the dependency, where are my connection is going out and what are the traffic is coming to my workload, and how I can sustain. Like when we move to the cloud, we have, maybe we decide to keep, for example, 500 users concurrent connection, but once you launch, it will become like a 5,000 or maybe more than 5,000 concurrent connection. So that kind of a tool, if you keep it prior to use the workload, I may having experience. That's what I share all those things which we have faced already about that kind of a workload, and we face a lot of challenges. Even if we keep our cloud infrastructure directly connected with us, and later we found there is a bandwidth constraint between the connection what you have, and most of the workload we are doing on-prem as well as the cloud, which is the hybrid model. Whatever the critical data which we don't want to share over the public, so we are keeping in the backend, and other thing we are keeping on the front end. So the type of the bandwidth maybe is not enough. So overall, the workload, what we have to do, the strategy, if you want to make this public workload, reduce your cost, and make this workload to available like the region and more globalized, easily accessible, that kind of workload we are distributing to the cloud. And that's it from my side. And back to you, our eminent panelist,
Thank
Mr.
thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I think I would agree absolutely one of the sentence you have told, saying that when it comes to workload, first we must decide and must be able to segregate our workload. The second is you talked about interdependencies. We must understand the interdependencies when we are moving towards the cloud. And the third point which you have brought out, Mohammed, very, very valid and very to the point, saying that what kind of observability and visibility are we able to create when we are moving this kind of a mission critical workload towards the cloud. So I think you have brought out such a good point, and right from your own experience, I think we all are practitioners and we understand. No, it's not easy. It looks easy saying that you'll have a lot of on-demand kind of a platform, agile, all these buzzword is fine. But when you are actually moving into your workload into the cloud, I can cite one of the small example when I was connecting to all my global embassies and consulate for the passport services. As you rightly said, one, I have my own premises data center. Second, I have to comply with the land of the law saying that you can't move out your data and application layer out of the country, right? And then third, the latency factor, because let's say I am dealing with my India data center, I have to all the way go to the, let's say, New York. The kind of latency factor it was playing a role, as you rightly pointed out. So I have to take a hybrid cloud approach where I can incase some of my non-mission, non-kind of a core kind of a thing into the cloud. However, I kept ensuring that my database layer and application layer remains within my on-premises data center without violating any principle of regulations or land of the law. So I think these are the very valid points. We practitioner, we understand how difficult it is when you are looking towards moving from your on-premises workload towards the cloud journey. So thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you. Let me come back to Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Golok, and the rest of the panelists. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Robert. I think we listened to some of our eminent panelists. We brought out various aspects of the cloud journey, right from Mr. John to Aayush, then Loice, and then Omar. I'll come to you, Mr. Robert. Let me have some of the use cases. What are the experience you have? What kind of services you have deployed into the cloud, so that we understand different kind of use cases which probably you have gone through. Can you enlighten us about some of the use cases and some of the workloads, some of the services you have deployed in the cloud? Yes, Mr. Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. The thing with speaking last, almost last, is everybody has said everything he wanted to say. But the important thing here is I'm going to share about some of the services that we have taken to the cloud, that we are consuming from the cloud, that are and the experience with them so far. I remember some times back, I was looking for a solution that will be able to do more than one need that I had. I needed a tool that can be able to do patch management on my systems. I needed a tool that could be able to do an inventory of my IT environment. Be able to tell what softwares I have, which machines are connected in my environment. I needed a tool that will be able to keep my all my policies, my SLAs. I need a tool that can be able to do remote support for my users, and one that can be able to do all this. I couldn't get, otherwise I was meant to go get individual applications that can do all that. Until I got one of the tools that is only hosted on the cloud and subscribed, and currently with that one tool I'm able to meet a lot of those needs that I have in my environment. That is one of the cases that I'm using at the moment for my work. The other one was I had issues with my mails that were on-prem. Every time we had an issue, the mail server crashes. And as much as you say yes, you'll back up those mails and be able to restore at the opportune time, like when a crash happens, that time you can't even be able to restore the mails as quick as you expected. Then couldn't catch up with the updates. Every now and then there is a new version of the application that is required. So you will realize what you bought last year is already outdated today. So I couldn't get a way to be able to catch up until I got one of the applications that you all know, probably you have used, that one could give me emails on the cloud. And now, once you configure somebody, as long as they have access to the net, to the internet, they access their mails. To storage, couldn't need to put terabytes and terabytes of storage on my environment. That is taken away by the storage that is provided on the cloud. The other one is a tool to communicate, be it on voice, be it on chat, be it on video like we are doing. That application is able to give me all that and more. And to me, apart from now meeting the needs that I have as the CIO of my organization using these services that are on the cloud, it also helps me in terms of I don't need now to have an email administrator who is now there making sure the email is working fine. I don't need somebody specific for a use that I have, because it's not my headache that I will need to do this. Now, what do we need to consider when we are going to the cloud, or when we want to use any applications, any infrastructures on the cloud? The important thing we need to look at is number one, how affordable is it? You cannot tell me you are a startup and you then put aside all that money to buy infrastructure, to buy software on-prem, as opposed to doing a service subscription on the cloud that can, be enough for your size. I come to the other thing is the regulation. Like I work for the financial services. There are some services you cannot put on the cloud, especially if the cloud is not on country or in country. The financial services will require maybe members or customers' data should be hosted in the country of operation. So that's sometimes you might get a provider who has a cloud in the country, but most of the cloud services are outside of the country of operation. So you will find in such a scenario, you have no option but to have those services on-prem. So there are those that you can't do without using the on-prem services. Then the other is how big is your IT department? Do you have all the workforce that can be able to manage all the different services that you have? And to me, that is what you need to look at for you to decide what service do you need to put on cloud, or what service do you need to run on-prem. But the thing is, the difference between cloud service and on-prem service is basically that when you say cloud, you are not hosting them in your environment. You can't go and touch that server and move around the power and stuff. What has happened, instead of now having physical servers on your office, they have been taken to another office, and you can access them through a media, for example, internet, or an MPLS link, or something like this. So really, it is not it's not a different thing we are talking about. It is the same things that we have on-prem. It's only that now you access them through means, and you don't worry about the physical aspect of it. Yes.
Absolutely, Mr. Robert. Absolutely. No, I agree. The kind of use cases you brought it out to us, and the kind of concerns you have brought out to us while you have gave the some of the use cases for all of us. I'll go for the second round to all the panelists, but now I request, because we have to wrap up the session within another 7-8 minutes. Each of the panelists, I request that please restrict your response within 1.5 minutes maximum. So I'll quickly go to John. Mr. John, coming back to you, Mr. John. Yeah, the second question I would like to ask, saying that we discuss about the cloud strategy, we discuss about some of the use cases, we discuss about interoperability aspect, we discuss about best practices, what different countries and different projects are following, and Mr. Mohammed brought it out about some of the very critical points when you are moving into the cloud. So one of the question comes to my mind, Mr. John, saying that how do you actually select a vendor, whether it is cloud vendor, whether it is AWS, Google, Azure, whosoever it is, how do you actually decide? How do you select the vendor? Can you please put forward your points within 1.5 minutes, please?
Thank you, Golok, for the question. I will try to summarize it as, in 1 minute, not even 1.5 minutes, and I will try to talk practically on what we have done before moving our infrastructure to cloud. So the most important thing is to know your workloads. You need to understand what services, what resources do you have, and what cloud vendor is compatible with these resources. Second thing, you need to know your human resources. For example, don't tell me I will go with AWS while I have no one in the team has any idea about AWS or even worked before on AWS or no experience. You will waste a lot of time in training these resources, and it will be a real waste of time if they know another cloud vendor like Azure or OCI or Google. Second thing is to evaluate the performance. You need to see the performance, your workload performance on this cloud. Like if you have SAP, if you have Oracle HRMS, if you have Oracle Core Banking System. Second, you need to assess how you will import these services. Is it easy to do the migration? How you will replicate your services to cloud? Third, and the most important point is the security. What type of security restrictions or security regulations is applied on that public cloud? You need to run a cloud security assessment and understand more about what regulations, what frameworks they are offering. Are they following the ISO 27001? Are they following the NIST cybersecurity framework? and so on. Second thing is to ensure availability and redundancy. You need to make sure what type of SLAs this public cloud provider will provide you, and if they have redundancy on their services or no. The one before the last is the connectivity. Don't go and choose a public cloud provider where they host in US while you are based in South Africa or in KSA, for example. The last part is the pricing, how much it will cost you. Comparing to on-premise or comparing to different type of cloud providers, is it going to cost the same? Is the differences in cost huge or it can be accepted? I believe these are the main factors when you get to choose your cloud provider before migrating or moving any workload to cloud.
Thank you, Mr. John, and thank you once again for giving your response exactly within 1.5 minutes. So thank you. And some of the points you have brought it out. Mr. Aayush, I'll come back to you saying that, like Mr. John said, how do you select a cloud vendor? Some of the major points and critical points which Mr. John has brought out. To you, Mr. Ayush, I'd like to ask the approach we adopt, whether it is a la carte approach, whether it is a brick and mortar model, whether it is a brick and mortar to a holistic way. What kind of approach you adopt, Mr. Ayush, and especially to the new journey who are adopting a new journey on the cloud? What do you suggest saying that what kind of approach one should adopt?
Thank you for the question. So, ideally, for any of the companies that for whichever domain they are from, as I say, the approach of which option to go for completely depends on which way the vision of the company is. Last 5 years back or 10 years back, cloud was not so and not so accessible right now that it is. And I think the next evolution would be with the industry 5.0 and 5Gs coming in. The use of these kind of components for clients will keep on increasing. And that comes again back to the solution designer's perspective. What solution should I go for? If you're going for a pick and choose of a solution from different client vendors, it gives an upper hand for the solution delivery guys, because you have best of each of the world. Some things like if you want to keep the data on premises, fine, but the rest thing for analytics, for your DevOps perspective, for your infrastructure deployments, ease of use, you can use any of the model that you actually have. Be it an HPC component, be it a VM stack, or be it and just an application layer. If you have the right component and if you're able to choose, instead of like we go to a supermarket and we keep on buying things that we don't even require, right? We end up buying. Same happens with many clients. We keep on buying solutions that we might not require. So if we give that liberty to the solution designers to choose the best of the world, I think that's a perfect answer to the solution being required for today's world, the digital transformation.
Absolutely, Mr. Ayush. I think the kind of business you have, the kind of workload you have, that would actually dictate whether it is a health service, whether it is a passport service, whether it is a financial service, whether it is simply launching a portal into the cloud. So it actually depends upon what kind of business you have and what exactly you are looking from the cloud per se. I think these are the points which you have very nicely brought out, saying that which will guide our listeners, saying that when they are looking for a cloud journey, what exactly they should look into. Mr. Mohammed, I'll come to you before I go to Loice, saying that no, lot of example have been given, saying that the cloud journey. But if I look into the digital transformation at large, when you're talking about holistic digital transformation across organization, across the government at large, across the public sector at large, how do you think cloud bring us a kind of a benefit to us vis-a-vis if I look into the traditional kind of a solution and the kind of digital journey and digital transformation we are looking for, and especially after COVID-19, if I see now every department, every organization, right from the startup to SMEs to public sector to government sector, everyone is going on a digital way. So if I ask you saying that what benefit clouds brings to us when I look for a holistic kind of a digital transformation?
Thank you, eminent moderator. I think you start from the beginning asking about the basic question when we are moving to the cloud or making a traditional, how it can benefit to as a citizen, as a resident. So I will take one example. If you want to take one basic service, an example like if you want to renewal your vehicle for inspection, normally before transformation, it will take the whole day. Like, for example, how many offense on your vehicle, and next will go to the payment. Make sure you check your insurance. Make sure you check your other things. If you have something else, it will take. If I want to renewal my vehicle inspection, it took maybe 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day. Maybe I don't have time. The whole day or maybe a week is only for just simple service to make my vehicle renewal. Similarly, if you talk about the digital transformation, what it gives benefit, I can see from maybe from my childhood, digital transformation is already happening, but it's gradually adopting by the people. Like before, they don't want to use any online classes. They don't want because they want to go as physical. But during, as you mentioned about the COVID arena, and people get start adopting, even they are going with their digital transformation. So I will coming back to my point now. If you make the transformation of your service, as I said, if you want to make your vehicle renewal will took for you for whole day, maybe 2 or 3 day, maybe a week. If you make that kind of a service integration between the whole parties, as you mentioned about the stakeholders about maybe I am the stakeholder, I need to make sure my vehicle should be run on the road with a proper valid thing. Another stakeholder like insurance, make sure my vehicle has insurance to be a valid to make ensure it is not having any trouble to the others to mine. Like make sure you have make all conservation system like online payment. So you make all the things for a customer perspective. If you make all this service make integration, I will give you example of traditional way and the digital transformation. For me, it's only take one way because I need to be in the queue of my vehicle to be reached to the inspector to checking my vehicle. Once it's reached over there, it take hardly maybe 15 to 20 minutes. So you see how it get transformed the digital arena, all services get integrated with all those things. Like it check, you have valid insurance, you have a valid car, uh, if the consumer, you don't have any contribution, you don't have any payment issue, everything is checked, just is give a slip, you go ahead. This is one example. Another example, if you have a less than 3 or if you have no need for insurance, just you come and see, yes, you are passed. So this is how we are getting transformed. Giving as an example of only for the vehicle. Like that, we have hundreds of services which we can make transformation to easy to the consumer, especially to the citizen and the resident. Will make life easier and make our things will be transforming ourselves to be adopt the digital arena. That's it from my side. And back to you, our panel moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, saying that no, I fully agree and appreciate saying that the kind of no era we are into, where every one of us looking for our own bit within a fraction of second, anywhere, anytime, 24 by 7. I don't think there is anything good and better than the cloud kind of infrastructure, that cloud kind of a platform. And I do remember when this COVID hit us, no, all our corporate data center, corporate application, corporate network, everything went into it. Everything became remote. everything become no kind of a work from home. So imagine this kind of exigency hitting us, and then we are locked into our own premises, data center, corporate network, corporate application. Imagine the kind of havoc and the kind of no, chaos it will create for all of us, right? And that's where I think cloud will play a very big role for all the sectors, whether it is I as a government, you as a private, somebody from academia, research, health, for every one of us. So thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Now I'll come back quickly to Ms. Loice and Mr. Robert. I have hardly 3-4 minutes remaining. So Ms. Loice, coming back to you, as we are discussing, saying that the cloud journey, the kind of advantage we have on the cloud, I think it's all about data, right? How do we take our data in terms of its effective use, in terms of effective leveraging the data, in terms of keeping the data securely and safely. So if I ask Ms. Losi about the data resiliency and data availability and the data kind of a security, how do you see, Ms. Losi, when we look into the cloud journey about the data resiliency and data availability part of it?
Okay, thank you again, Golok. I think as Aayush has alluded to, a lot of speed in processing. The speed in processing is insurance. It just shows us that the cloud availability makes it very fast to process data. However, if you are going into hybrid cloud environment, there is on-premise which must match with what is on the cloud. So we need to ensure that all the measures of data resilience are kept in place, such as usability, security, robustness, reliability, availability, capacity, interoperability, and performance. All these have to be taken into account when we come up with data resilience to ensure that we have a single dimension of this data resilience. I'll stop here.
So thank you, Ms. Loice, saying that, as you said, data will always play important role. Data will always sit on the core of everything we strategize and everything we plan, whether we talk about cloud adaptability, whether we talk about cloud resiliency, whether we talk about the cost factor. No, everything data will play a central role, and the idea is how do we protect the data? How do we secure the data? If I ask Mr. Robert on the cloud journey, protection of data, protection of its privacy, whether it is a personal data or non-personal data, especially compliance to the land of law, regulation, acts. How do you see cloud help us, or is it a boon, or is it a kind of a cautious for us when we are moving towards cloud, especially looking into the data security and privacy concerns? So, Mr. Robert, I've request within 1.5 minutes, please. I have hardly 2 minutes left. I have to wrap up the session.
Thank you, Golok. They say that the most secure system ever is that is offline. And cloud is not offline. What I want again to just translate from what we have just discovered, that cloud is just like physical on-prem, only that it is not on your environment, which now brings more things in terms of worrying, in terms of security that we need to look at. One of them is to ensure that as we move data from individual endpoints, like the PCs, you need to get a way to get that data to the cloud safely and back from the cloud safely by encrypting. Why are we worried about data that is not encrypted? Because when you have data that is not encrypted, there are people who have put tools on the internet that capture data. And that is why you hear things to do with identity theft, fraud happening, somebody impersonating you, and then they get to your online banking, and you go to your account and you find there's no money because somewhere somebody was able to hijack your data as you are transmitting it back or from the cloud, and impersonated you. The other thing that we need to do to secure the data is look at the fine prints with the vendors who are the owners of the cloud services. Can you ask questions about the agreements you have in terms of what security measures have they put in place? Can they show you certifications of maybe penetration tests that have been tested on their systems? How well did they perform? The other thing is, even the users that we have in our environment accessing those cloud services, let them use strong passwords. Let people have things like two-factor authentication. A password can be stolen, but for you to get the password and maybe a mobile device that sends a code, that really takes quite a bit of time. Don't share personal things that you really don't have to share. I know we live in a world of social media and stuff. When you are happy, you put up everything up there. When you are sad, you put everything up there. Let's try to minimize on personal things that we put on the cloud or wherever we put our footprints on the cloud.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Golok. I think I'm running out of time. Uh, uh, the security aspect you have brought in, the privacy concerns you have brought in, and how do we secure our workload into the cloud. Now, before I wrap up the session, some of the takeaways I must bring in here, saying that we all understand, all of our eminent members also brought out their very no kind of a thought leadership view, saying that while we are progressing and while we are migrating our workload from on-premises data center to the cloud, the approach we adopt, the best way is to approach a hybrid way where we understand our workload first, which workload we should move into the cloud, which workload we should deal with from our on-premises data center. The second point which we discuss and deliberated is we must have a data strategy. Whenever we are thinking on a cloud, what kind of data I am dealing with? Is it a personal data? Is it a public data? Is it a fiduciary data? Is it a non-fiduciary data? And overall, we must take a pragmatic approach. The approach must be having a practical sense. Rather, as I said, simply do not move your workload into the cloud, but have a sense of responsibility and sense of kind of a assuring that whatever I am moving into the cloud, whatever I am no servicing from the cloud, the kind of visibility, the kind of observability, the kind of sense of security am I able to create for myself, my stakeholders at large, my management at large, and overall the beneficiaries and masses at large who will actually avail the services from the cloud. Last but not the least, everything whatever you do, we see that today's world is, it is anytime, anywhere, any device, 24 by 7 kind of a scenario. So can we create that kind of a scenario for any of the services or any of the applications, whether I as a fintech industry, you as a private sector, somebody from a government organization, can we create that kind of a environment? And which I personally believe cloud will play a very big role and major role, giving us that kind of an opportunity for all of us. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, each one of us, Mr. John, Ayush, Mohammed, Loice, and Robert. And let me thank you once again, Mr. Robert and our entire team for bringing us all up here for such a nice and interactive discussion. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Golok. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you once again, Mr. Golok, for
Thank you, Jay.
organizing this, getting us to kind of share all your experiences together. Thank you so much, each and everyone. Mr. John Mankarios from QInvest, Ms. Loice from People's Own Savings Bank, Mr. Mohammed Viqaruddin from Almoayed Computer Middle East, Mr. Aayush Bhattacharyya, and Mr. Robert Mogoi from Mombasa Port. Thank you all so much again for your time and sharing your insights and your experiences. Hopefully, we'll be able to see you at our next editions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with this, dear audience, we have reached the end of a very insightful and successful day one of Qatar Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit. The entire team of Trex Events is thankful to all our esteemed speakers, eminent panelists, eminent moderators, and our sponsors. And last but not the least, I'd also like to thank all our delegates for joining us today in huge numbers to make this day a success. Please do not forget to visit the booths of our sponsors, Cloud4C, SUSE, ManageEngine, and VM. Have a great evening ahead and see you all tomorrow at the same time. The link will remain the same. If you have any difficulties, please feel free to contact the team. Have a great evening again. Bye-bye.